All right, so as we approach the general election, it's always inevitable. Business is going to take sides, and they're going to root for one particular candidate over the other. And you got to say, it's a no-brainer, right? Business, Wall Street's got to be rooting for the billionaire businessman. But that notion is turned on its head in a survey of trade organizations. They emphatically say Hillary Clinton is the best candidate for business. So how exactly does this happen? Well, let me help you out a little bit on this. These were 53 Washington, D.C.-based trade associations. We're talking 16 lobbies, 100,000 businesses. Now, we must say they do a combined $3.5 trillion with a T in annual sales. Could Trump's talk of trade wars be scaring these guys away? I mean, we're talking some of America's most influential companies. Joining me now to discuss, David Asman, Jillian Melchior, Steve Forbes, and Shelby Holliday is back with us as well. Steve, I'll start with you. Because you've been something what I think, listening to you on the fence with respect to Donald Trump and his approach to business policy.
Well, I think you hit on the real fear. The real fear is a trade war. 45% tariff on imports is a 45% sales tax. And we saw in the 1930s where that led. So he's got to clear that up. He's also got to be emphatic on what truly his inclinations are on the tax side. He had a tax plan out, then he seemed to repudiate it, then he seemed to embrace it, then he said he's going to change it, then he said he wasn't going to change it. So the uncertainty is where people are just wondering, where do they go?
Well, if it's the 15% tax for businesses, Shelby, it's hard to, everyone would probably put on the pom-poms in the world of business. Right. But even in this survey, he got like 31% to 24%. So I think a lot of it is reluctance, to Steve's point, reluctance to say, hey, we don't know what we're buying into.
Reluctance, I mean, businesses want predictability. They want communication. They want to be able to know that the future president will listen to them if they want to have an open conversation. And you said it best. I mean, there's just so much uncertainty and unpredictability. We're talking about not just taxes, but trade. We seem to go back and forth on that. We seem to go back and forth on whether or not we should attack businesses or business owners. We've heard big rants
the retribution against, for instance, a carrier, David, I'm going to go specifically after carrier. I'm going to go after Ford. Right. I'm going to go specifically after and punish individual companies. Does scare the hell out of all of these companies.
It does. I'm with Steve in terms of trade. I mean, there is nothing scarier than a trade war. I think some people even suggest it led to World War II in addition to the Great Depression. So we don't want a trade war. On the other hand, I'm a little more settled about Trump's views on taxes because he's working with Art Laffer. He's working with Larry Kudlow. He's working with people that understand how important across-the-board tax cuts are in terms of regenerating the economy. And people forget Reagan's supply-side revolution was not just about taxes. It was also about regulatory reform, because that's a tax, bringing down regulations. And Trump understands that very well. These trade associations, by the way, a lot of them are corporativists. And as Milton Friedman said, the only person who hates the free market more than the socialist is the corporativist. So that has to be kept in mind.
What do you say?
I think uncertainty is key to this. And then you've also got him sounding liberal on things like the minimum wage, on taxing the rich. And then I think also small businesses are balking at the fact that sometimes he says things that suggest he just doesn't have a very firm grasp on economics. For instance, saying that the U.S. can't run out of money because we'll just print it.
Well, what was
That's pretty scary.
Or maybe we won't pay back our debt in full.
But it's so funny because I kind of think that where this is faulty, this piece, is on small businesses. I think if I'm a small business, I have more confidence in what Donald Trump has said so far, Steve, because he is talking about less competition from cheap goods. He is talking about bringing businesses back, manufacturing back to America. If I'm a small businessman, I actually feel a lot more excited about a Donald Trump presidency than perhaps a large international multinational.
Well, for small businesses, as with large businesses, it cuts both ways in terms of trade. What I think small businesses want is emphatically their tax rate is going to go down.
15%. If you're a small business, if the president's promising you 15%.
And on the personal side, it's 25, 28, pick a number. But that's where a lot of small businesses are taxed on their personal side. But if Donald Trump gave a major speech about regulation and how it's killing businesses,
sure,
about all of these new laws that nobody knows what they are and they can hit you in the dead of night. If he started giving speeches like that, I think small businesses would say, hooray, this guy gets it.
And I think that's coming because he talked about Dodd-Frank with Reuters yesterday. And you got to think, regulations, it's low-hanging fruit. You want to talk about how President Obama has really killed this economy, regulations and fees.